The alarm screamed through every corridor of Meridian 7. Red lights flashed against white walls, painting everything in shades of blood and shadow. Sung ran through the diplomatic wing, his hand resting on the weapon at his hip. He had been a security officer on this station for 3 years, and he had never heard this particular alarm before. It was the one they hoped would never sound, the evacuation alarm. His radio crackled to life. All personnel, this is Commander Timon. We have confirmed reports of a Krill attack fleet approaching our position. Estimated time of arrival is 48 hours. All diplomatic staff and guests are to proceed immediately to evacuation zones. This is not a drill. Sung could already see the panic spreading. Alien diplomats rushed from their quarters, carrying whatever they could grab. The Vrel delegation skittered past him on 6 legs, their translator devices shrieking in their own language. A group of Nomian traders pushed through the crowd, their gray skin flushed with fear. Everyone was running toward the docking bays. He pressed his radio. Jiwoo, where are you? His partner's voice came back strained. Docking Bay 3. It's chaos down here. Sung. Everyone's trying to leave at once. We can't control the crowd. Sung. Change direction, heading toward the Queen's chambers. Queen Velmara of the Siltine Empire was the most important guest on the station. She had come to negotiate a peace treaty that would end decades of conflict between her people and the Krill. If the Krill were attacking, she was their target. The doors to the diplomatic suite stood open. Inside, he found Hana, the young aide to the human ambassador. She was trying to calm the Queen's ceremonial guards, tall, crystalline beings that hummed with agitation. Their bodies were made of something that looked like living glass, shifting colors with their emotions. Right now, they pulsed angry red and orange. What's happening? Sung asked. Hana turned to him, her face pale. The Queen's transport ship. Someone sabotaged it during the night. The engines are completely destroyed. She can't leave. Sung felt ice in his stomach. What about the evacuation pods? One of the guards spoke, its voice like crystal chimes. The Queen cannot use standard evacuation systems. Her biology requires specific atmospheric conditions and temperature controls. The pods will kill her just as surely as the Krill. Then we put her on another ship. Sung said. One of the diplomatic vessels. They have all departed or are departing now. The guard replied. And the Queen's chamber must maintain exact environmental stability. Moving her without proper equipment will cause her molecular structure to collapse. She will shatter and die. Sung looked past the guards into the Queen's chamber. Velmara sat in the center of the room, perfectly still. Her crystalline body caught the light and split it into rainbows that danced across the walls. She was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. He had never spoken directly to her before. Security officers did not interact with queens. How long until a proper rescue ship can arrive? He asked. Hana checked her tablet, her hands shaking. The nearest Sylphian vessel with the right equipment is 72 hours away. Maybe 70 if they push their engines. The Krill will be here in 48 hours, I know. The guards began arguing among themselves in their chiming language. Sung could not understand the words, but he understood the tone. They were discussing who would stay to Protect the queen who would die with her. Commander Timon's voice came over the radio again. Final boarding calls for all evacuation. Ships. Departure begins in 30 minutes. All personnel must report to docking bays immediately. Number 4. Jiwoo's private channel. Opened. D-Sung, where are you? You need to get to the bay now. D-Sung looked at the queen again. She had not moved. Her head turned slowly toward him, and though her face was alien and unreadable, he felt her looking at him. Really looking at him. He thought about his sister, Su-min. He had been off-world when the raiders attacked her colony. By the time he got there, it was too late. He had not been in there to protect her. He had lived with that failure for 5 years. Jiwoo, he said into his radio. Get on a ship. Get out of here. What are you talking about? D-Sung, the evacuation. I'm staying. There was silence on the other end. Then Jiwoo's voice came back, sharp with disbelief. Have you lost your mind? The krill will kill you. Maybe, but I'm not leaving her alone. This isn't your responsibility. You're a security officer, not a hero. D-Sung smiled sadly. I know, tell Hana she needs to go too. He ended the transmission before Jiwoo could argue further. Hana was staring at him, her eyes wide. You can't stay, she whispered. D-Sung, this is suicide. Probably, he agreed. But someone has to too. The queen came here to make peace. She came here believing she would be protected. If we all run, what does that say about us? What does that say about humanity? It says we're smart enough to survive. It says we're cowards who abandon our guests when things get dangerous. Hana opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. She looked at the queen, then back at D-Sung. Tears ran down her face. Finally, she nodded and ran from the room. The guards turned to him. Human, one said. Why would you do this? D-Sung walked to the weapons locker on the wall and began checking the equipment inside. Because it's the right thing to do. Now if you want to help, show me the station's defensive systems. If I'm going to die here, I'm taking as many krill with me as I can. Outside, the evacuation ships began to launch. One by one, they disappeared into the darkness of space. The station grew quieter. The hallways emptied. The lights dimmed to emergency power. D-Sung stood in the control room and watched the last ship depart. Jiwoo was on it. Hana was on it. T-Min and all the others. The station's population had gone from 3,000 to 1. Just him and the queen. He pulled up the tactical display and marked the approaching krill fleet. 6 warships. Hundreds of warriors. All coming for one crystalline queen and the single human who refused to leave her behind. All right, he said to the empty room. Let's see what we can do. The silence was the worst part. D-Sung had never realized how much noise a station made when it was full of people. The conversations in hallways, footsteps echoing, the hum of activity. Now there was only the mechanical breathing of life support systems and the soft beep of monitoring equipment. He worked through the night, preparing what defenses he could. The station had shields, but they were designed to protect against accidents and small debris, not military weapons. The weapons locker held basic security gear, enough to handle a riot or a small boarding party, but nothing that could stop a full krill Assault force, Di-sung moved through the corridors gathering what he could use. Maintenance drones sat idle in there. Charging stations, he spent hours. Reprogramming them, turning peaceful repair machines into mobile bombs. It was crude work, but it might buy him a few extra minutes. In the engineering section, he found the old mining laser. Meridian 7 had started as a mining station before being converted for diplomatic use. The laser had been decommissioned, but not removed. It was massive, powerful, enough to cut through asteroids. Di-sung stared at it for a long time, running calculations in his head. If he could get it working, if he could target it manually, he might be able to damage one of the Krill ships. Maybe the work kept his hands busy, but not his mind. Every time he stopped moving, he questioned his decision. Was this bravery or stupidity? Would his death here matter to anyone? Jaiwoo was right. He was not a hero. He was just a security officer who made a choice. On the second day, a voice spoke behind him. You should have left with the others. Di-sung turned. Queen Velmara stood in the doorway of her chamber. She moved slowly, carefully, her crystalline body catching in, bending the emergency lights. Up close, he could see that she was not entirely transparent. There were layers within her, like looking into deep water where sunlight only reaches so far. Your Majesty, he said, not sure if he should bow. He settled for a respectful nod. You do not need to use titles, she said. Her voice was strange, like hearing someone speak through wind chimes. There is no one here to see proper protocol. I am Velmara. You are Di-sung. How do you know my name? I know the names of all who protect me, or who protected me. You are the last. Di-sung returned to checking the power conduits he had been rerouting. I'm setting up false heat signatures throughout the station. When the Krill board, their sensors will show life signs in multiple locations. It might confuse them for a while. Clever, but ultimately futile. Probably. Velmara moved closer, and Di-sung caught the faint smell of ozone, like the air after lightning. Why did you stay? Di-sung. Humans are known for their survival instinct. This goes against your nature. He was quiet for a moment, then said, I had a sister, Sumin. She died 5 years ago when raiders attacked her colony. I was not there. I could not save her, and you think saving me will balance that loss? No. Nothing will balance that. But I can make a different choice this time. No. Velmara's body pulsed with soft blue light. My people experience time differently than yours. When I feel sorrow, I feel every moment of sorrow I have ever experienced, all at once. When I feel joy, the same. Right now, I feel the weight of 800 years of decisions. That sounds exhausting. It is. 2 centuries ago, my empire waged war against 17 smaller species. We crushed them because we could, because we were stronger. I led those campaigns. I gave the orders. Billions died. The song stopped working and looked at her. Why are you telling me this? Because you should know what you are protecting. I am not innocent. I am not a victim. I came to this station to negotiate peace, not out of kindness, but out of guilt. I hope that ending this war with the Krill might somehow balance the scales of what I have done. And now you will die before you can make That peace, yes. And you will die with me, protecting a war criminal who does not deserve protection. Desong picked up his tools and moved to the next conduit. Everyone deserves protection. That's what separates us from the monsters. Before Velmyra could respond, alarm shrieked through the station. Desong ran to the nearest control panel and pulled up the sensor display. His blood turned to ice. The Krill fleet had arrived early, not in 48 hours or even 30. They were here now, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation around the station. 6 massive warships, their hulls covered in organic armor that looked like insect carapace. They knew, Desong said quietly. They knew the evacuation schedule. They waited until everyone was gone. Communication signal forced its way through the station systems. A face appeared on the screen. If it could be called a face, the Krill were insectoid with mandibles and compound eyes. This one wore decorative armor, marking him as a commander. Station Meridian 7. The Krill said in translated speech. Surrender Queen Velmyra and we will grant you a quick death. Resist and we will make your suffering legendary. Desong looked at Velmyra. Then back at the screen, he pressed the transmit button. This is Security Officer Desong. The Queen is under my protection. If you want her, come and take her. Krill commander's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. One human. This will be amusing. We will enjoy peeling you apart slowly. The transmission ended. On the sensor display, Desong watched as the Krill ships launched boarding craft, dozens of them. Like seeds scattering from a plant, they would dock at multiple points, forcing him to defend everywhere at once. He had perhaps 20 minutes before they breached the hull. A sound made him turn. The door to the docking bay opened, and a small shuttle glided in. Desong's heart sank as he recognized it. The shuttle landed and Hana emerged, carrying bags of equipment. You came back, he said, disbelief and anger mixing in his voice. I couldn't leave you, Hana said simply. I got halfway to the nearest station and turned around. I brought medical supplies and tactical data on Krill combat patterns. You should not have come back. Now you are going to die too. Then we die together. She walked past him toward the defensive positions he had set up. Where do you need me? Desong wanted to yell at her, to order her back to her shuttle. But there was no time. The Krill were coming. He handed her weapon. Junction 7. There's a choke point there. I set up explosives. When I give the signal, detonate them. Hana took the weapon, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. Desong, thank you for staying, for showing us what humanity should be. Desong. Desong, he nodded, unable to speak. Past the tightness in his throat, they moved to their positions. The first boarding craft attached to the hull with a metallic clang that echoed through the empty station. Then another, and another. The cutting began. Velmyra's voice came through his communicator, calm and clear. Whatever happens, Desong, know that you have already given me something precious. You have shown me that not all beings are driven by fear. Some are driven by something better. None. Let's hope that something better is enough. Desong replied. The hull breached. Krill warriors poured into Meridian 7 like a flood of chittering nightmares. The siege had begun. The Krill moved through the station like a plague of Locusts. Dae-sung watched them on the security monitors, his finger hovering over the detonator for his first trap. They were larger than he expected, each warrior standing nearly 3 m tall. Their exoskeletons were thick plates of natural armor colored in shades of black and deep purple. They carried weapons that looked like they had been grown rather than built. He waited until the first squad reached Corridor 12. 8 warriors moving in formation, their antennae twitching as they scanned for threats. Dae-sung pressed the button. Maintenance drones he had reprogrammed rolled out from hidden alcoves and exploded. The corridor filled with fire and shrapnel. When the smoke cleared, 3 krill were down, their armor cracked and leaking pale fluid. The others scattered, seeking cover. First blood to us, Dae-sung whispered, but the krill learned fast. The next group moved more cautiously, checking every corner, every shadow. Dae-sung watched them advance toward Junction 7 where Hana waited. He spoke into his communicator. Hana, they are coming to you, 12 targets. I see them. Her voice came back, tight with tension. The krill entered the junction, a wide intersection where 4 corridors met. Dae-sung had chosen it carefully. Hana was hidden in a maintenance shaft, above them, perfectly positioned. Now, Sung ordered. Hana triggered the explosives. The blast brought down part of the ceiling, crushing 4 krill. Instantly, she followed up with gunfire, her shots careful and precise like he had taught her during their practice sessions. 2 more krill fell before they could locate her position, but these were trained soldiers bred for war. They returned fire, and Dae-sung saw Hana's life sign indicator on his screen flicker. She was hit. On his tongue. She was hit. Hana, I'm okay, she gasped. But he could hear the pain. Shoulder. I can still move. Fall back to position. 3. Now, he triggered more traps as the krill pursued her, buying her time. Explosive decompression in Corridor 18. Gravity reversal in Section 9 that sent 3 krill warriors floating helplessly before he vented the air and let them freeze. Coolant pipes that burst and covered the enemy in liquid that froze their joints. The station became a maze of death, and Dae-sung was its architect. He did not fight the krill with strength. He fought them with cunning, with intimate knowledge of every system, every weakness. He made Meridian 7 itself into a weapon, but there were too many of them. For every krill he killed, 5 more seemed to take their place. They were adapting to his tactics, finding ways around his traps. Slowly, methodically, they were pushing toward the diplomatic wing where Queen Velma awaited. Dae-sung found Hana in the medical bay. Blood soaked her uniform from the shoulder wound. A krill blade had pierced through her armor, the wound deep and ragged. You need to stay here, he said, applying emergency sealant to the injury. No. Hana, you have lost too much blood. So have you. He looked down and realized she was right. His side was wet with blood from a wound he did not even remember getting. When had that happened? During the fight in Corridor 9, or the ambush at Junction 4, the last few hours blurred together. Queen Velma appeared in the doorway of the medical bay. Without a word, she moved to Hana's side. The queen's crystalline hand touched Hana's forehead, and her body began to resonate with a deep harmonic tone that Dae-sung felt in His bones, what is she doing? He asked. Hana's eyes widened in surprise, then slowly relaxed. The pain lines around her mouth softened. The pain, she whispered. It's becoming distant. I can still feel it, but it's like it belongs to someone else. Truther. Truther teen, my people use harmonic frequencies to manage trauma, Velma explained. It will not heal her wound, but it will keep her conscious and functional for a time. Disung stared at the queen. You are risking yourself by being out of your chamber. If I die hiding while you fight, what am I worth? An explosion rocked the station. The Krill were using heavier weapons now, blasting through Disung's barricades. He checked his ammunition. 3 magazines left. Maybe 30 rounds total against hundreds of enemies. They fell back to the final defensive line, the corridor leading directly to the diplomatic wing. Disung set up the last of his explosives, while Hana took a position behind an overturned equipment cart. Velmara returned to her chamber, but Disung could still hear her harmonic tones, steady and calming. The Krill commander's voice came over the communication system. Human, you have impressed me. You fight well for such a small, weak creature. But this ends now. Surrender the queen, and I will kill you quickly. You have my word as Zethkir, first blade of the Krill Collective. Disung activated his microphone. Zethkir, I have a counteroffer. Leave now, and I will not collapse the entire diplomatic wing on top of you. Zethkir's laughter chittered through the speakers. A bluff. You would kill yourself and your precious queen. Try me. There was silence then. Very well. I will come myself to end this. I will pull your limbs from your body, one at a time. I will make you watch as I drag the queen from her chamber and execute her before your dying eyes. The transmission cut off. On the monitors, Disung saw Krill forces pulling back, consolidating their positions. They were preparing for a final, overwhelming assault. Hana checked her weapon. How many rounds do you have left? Not enough. Me neither. They sat in silence. For a moment, Disung thought about his sister again, about the life he had lived. It had not been a great life. He had made mistakes, had regrets, but in this moment, bleeding and tired and facing certain death, he felt something he had not felt in years. He felt like he mattered. Disung, Hana said quietly, why did you really stay? The truth, he considered lying, giving her something noble and heroic, but she deserved honesty. I was tired, he said. Tired of running from my failures. Tired of being the person who was never there when it mattered. I stayed because for once, just once, I wanted to be the person who did not run. That is heroic, you fool, he smiled. Maybe, but it does not feel like it. SP now, Velmara's voice joined them through the communicator. In my culture, we have a concept, resonance. When two beings vibrate at the same frequency, they amplify each other. They become stronger together than they could ever be apart. The three of us, we resonate. Poetic, Disung said. But poetry will not stop the Krill, no. But perhaps this will. On his display, Disung saw a new signal. He accessed the station's external sensors and his breath caught the mining laser. Velmara had accessed the controls from her chamber and was Powering it up, if I can target there. Command ship, she said. We might buy enough time for rescue. That laser could tear the station apart. Yes, it might, but we are dead anyway. At least this way. We take them with us, Di-sung looked at his displays at the Krill forces, massing for their final assault. He thought about Zethkir's promise to kill him slowly. He thought about what would happen to Velmara if they failed. Do it, he said. The station hummed as power diverted to the ancient mining. Laser. Lights dimmed. Life support systems dropped to minimum. Everything fed into that one massive weapon. The Krill noticed. Their assault began early. Warriors flooding into the corridor in a wave of chitin and rage. Di-sung and Hana opened fire. The mining laser fired, with a sound like reality tearing apart. Through the external sensors, Di-sung watched as the beam cut through space and struck the Krill command ship. For a moment nothing happened, then the ship split in half. A perfect line of destruction running from bow to stern. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as systems failed and fuel ignited. The entire station shook from the recoil. Alarms screamed as hull plates buckled and seams cracked. Atmosphere began venting from a dozen breaches. The lights went completely dark, replaced by emergency red backup power. The station is breaking apart. Velmara's voice came through, distorted by interference. Structural collapse in 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Di-sung's last magazine ran dry. He dropped it and drew his knife, the only weapon he had left, beside him. Hana fired her final rounds into the mass of Krill warriors pressing toward them. Then a single figure emerged from the crowd of enemies. Zethkir stood nearly 4 m tall, his armor decorated with kill markings from 100 battles. He carried a blade that curved like a scythe, its edge gleaming with some kind of toxin. Clear the way, Zethkir ordered his soldiers. They fell back, forming a circle. The commander wanted this kill for himself. Di-sung stood, his knife feeling pathetically small in his hand. Every part of his body screamed in pain. Broken ribs from earlier fights, burns from explosive blowback, the deep cut in his side that would not stop bleeding. He could barely stand, much less fight. You should have run. Human, Zethkir said, his mandibles clicking. Your bravery is admirable, but ultimately meaningless. You die here. The Queen dies. Nothing changes, maybe, Di-sung replied. But you will remember me. Every time you think about this day, you will remember that one human stood against your entire fleet, and that will eat at you forever. Zethkir roared and charged. The Krill commander was faster, stronger, better trained. Every advantage belonged to him. His first strike nearly took Di-sung's head off. Only a desperate dive to the side saved him, and even then the blade opened a cut across his back. Di-sung could not win this fight with skill. He could not match Zethkir's strength or speed. So he did what humans do best. He refused to quit. He ducked under a killing blow and slammed his knife into a joint in Zethkir's armor. The blade skittered off the chitin, but it made the commander stumble. Di-sung grabbed a piece of broken equipment and threw it at Zethkir's eyes, buying himself 2 seconds. 2 seconds to reach the corridors. Emergency bulkhead controls. Zethkir realized the danger and lunged, but too late. Di-sung slammed his fist into the emergency release. The massive bulkhead door dropped like a guillotine. It caught Szeth Kyer in the middle of his body. The Krill commander screamed, a sound like tearing metal. He was trapped, half his body on each side of the door. His warriors rushed forward trying to pry it open, but the emergency seals had engaged. It would take them precious minutes to override it. Dae Sung collapsed against the wall, blood pouring from his wounds. He had won, but the cost was too high. He could feel his body shutting down. Internal bleeding. Organ damage. He was dying. Dae Sung. Hannah crawled to him, her own wounds forgotten. Stay with me. The cavalry is coming. The Galactic Council received my distress call. They are only minutes away. Minutes we do not have, he whispered. The station shuddered again. Another section breaking away. Get to the Queen. Get her to safety. I cannot move her. You know that. Velmara's voice cut through their argument. Bring him to my chamber. Both of you. Now Hannah dragged Dae Sung down the corridor. Behind them, the Krill warriors began cutting through the bulkhead. They had maybe 2 minutes before the enemy broke through. In the Queen's chamber, Velmara's crystalline body was pulsing with light and colors Dae Sung had never seen before. The walls of the chamber resonated with the same frequencies, creating a sound that made his teeth ache. What are you doing? Hannah asked. Something forbidden. Velmara replied. My people can share our life essence, but it causes us terrible pain and can shatter our structure permanently. I have never attempted it before. No. Dae Sung tried to say, but his voice came out as a whisper. Do not risk yourself for me. Be silent. Human. You saved me. Now I save you. Velmar's hand touched Dae Sung's chest. Light poured from her into him, and he felt something impossible happening. His wounds were not healing, but the pain became distant. His failing organs stabilized. It was as if her crystalline structure was holding him together by sheer force of will, but the cost was visible. Cracks appeared in Velmar's body, spreading like frost across glass. She was breaking herself apart to keep him alive. Your Majesty, stop, Hannah pleaded. Not yet, Velmar said through what sounded like grinding agony. Just a few more minutes. The rescue ships are close. The bulkhead behind them exploded inward. Krill warriors poured through, dozens of them enraged by their commanders' death. They saw the Queen, vulnerable and cracked. They saw Dae Sung barely conscious. They saw Hannah, weaponless and desperate. They raised their weapons for the kill. Then light filled the chamber, bright and pure and absolute. Galactic Council shock troops materialized directly into the room, their teleport technology allowing them to bypass the Krill entirely. Elite soldiers in powered armor, each one worth 10 normal warriors. The battle that followed was brief and brutal. The Council troops had been authorized to use lethal force. They cut through the Krill with precision fire, their advanced weapons making the fight one-sided. Within minutes, every enemy in the diplomatic wing was dead or retreating. A Council medic rushed to Dae Sung. This human needs immediate medical attention. His organs are failing. Save the Queen first, Dae Sung managed to say. We have specialists for her, the medic replied, injecting him with something that made the world go soft and blurry. You just focus on staying alive. Last thing Dae Sung saw before Unconsciousness took him was Velma's vase, her crystalline features fractured but still beautiful. She was speaking, but he could not hear the words over the ringing in his ears. Later he would learn that she said, "Thank you for showing me what honor truly means." He dreamed of his sister. Sumin was standing in a field of flowers smiling. "You did good, brother," she said. "You finally did good." When he woke, he was in a medical bay that smelled of antiseptic and recycled air. Hana sat beside his bed, her arm in a sling but otherwise healthy. She was crying. "We made it," she said. "We actually made it." Di-sung tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Hana held water to his lips. "Queen," he finally managed to ask. Hana's smile faltered. "Alive, but badly damaged. The doctors say she will never fully recover from what she did to save you. The cracks in her structure are permanent." Guilt washed over him worse than any physical pain. "She should not have done that. She chose to. Just like you chose to stay. Some choices are not about what we should do, but about who we want to be." The door to the medical bay opened. A council official entered, an alien with blue skin and too many eyes. Di-sung of Earth. "The Galactic Council wishes to speak with you about your actions on Meridian 7. Am I in trouble?" The official's expression shifted into what might have been a smile. "Quite the opposite. You have started something unprecedented. But first, you need to heal." Dae-sung closed his eyes. Exhaustion pulled at him. But for the first time in 5 years, he felt something like peace. He had stayed when others fled. He had stood when others fell. He had proven, if only to himself, that he could be the person who does not run. It would have to be enough. 3 months passed before Dae-sung could walk without help. The doctors had rebuilt most of his damaged organs, but some injuries went deeper than flesh and bone. He woke screaming some nights, reliving the moment when Zeth Kyre's blade came for his throat. Other nights, he dreamed he was still alone on Meridian 7, waiting for enemies that never stopped coming. Hana visited him every day. Her shoulder had healed completely, though she said it still ached when station pressure changed. She told him about what happened after the rescue. The Galactic Council had launched a massive investigation into the attack. What they found shocked everyone. It was not just the Krill faction. Hana explained during one visit. 7 different governments knew about the attack in advance. They did nothing to stop it because they wanted the Queen dead. Wars are profitable. Dae-sung. Peace is not what happened to them. Public trials. 3 ambassadors were removed from office. 2 governments fell completely when their people learned the truth. The galaxy is still dealing with the aftermath. She paused, then added quietly, "They also found Bora, the translator who sabotaged the Queen's ship." Dae-sung remembered the name from the security reports. "Where is she now?" Di-sung. Di-sung remembered too. Di-sung. She testified against the conspirators. Turns out the Creel were holding her family hostage. They forced her to help or they would kill her children. Hana's voice was sad. The council wanted to prosecute her, but Queen Velmara refused. She said anyone forced to choose between their children and strangers should not be punished for choosing their children. The queen is more forgiving than I would be. She has lived 800 years. Maybe that teaches you something about mercy. The next day, Jaiwoo came to visit. Sung's former partner looked terrible, like he had not slept in weeks. He stood in the doorway of the medical room, unable to meet Sung's eyes. I am sorry, Jaiwoo said. I left you there to die. I evacuated like a coward while you stayed and fought. Sung shook his head. You followed orders. You survived. That is what you were supposed to do. I quit the security service. I cannot do it anymore. Knowing that when it mattered, I ran. Then find something else to do. But do not punish yourself forever. One of us carrying that weight is enough. Jaiwoo finally looked up, tears in his eyes. You should hate me. I am too tired to hate anyone. They talked for an hour about small things, avoiding the bigger truths they both carried. When Jaiwoo left, Sung felt exhausted, but somehow lighter. Forgiveness, he was learning, helped both the forgiven and the forgiver. Commander Tammin came a week later, formal and uncomfortable. He brought a medal, a commendation from the Galactic Council for Extraordinary Valor. Sung looked at the shiny piece of metal and felt nothing. Is this supposed to make it better? He asked. Tammin set the medal on the bedside table. No, but it is all we have to give. You did something that will be remembered for generations. That should count for something. How are for Ender Welder, Ender Dister, Welder, Ender Dister. 3 people almost died. The station was destroyed because you showed the galaxy something. It had forgotten that some things matter more than survival, that honor and duty are not just words. Tammin stood to leave, then paused. Council is creating a new protocol. The Meridian Principle. No diplomatic station will ever be evacuated completely again. There will always be a volunteer force, prepared to defend guests to the last. They are calling it the Sung Protocol. After Tammin left, Sung stared at the ceiling and tried to decide how he felt about that. His name turned into a rule that might send others to their deaths. Was that legacy or curse? The answer came when Queen Velmara visited him. She arrived with minimal ceremony, her crystalline body still showing the cracks from when she had shared her life force with him. The doctor said those cracks would never heal. She would carry them forever. A permanent reminder of Meridian 7. You should not have come, Sung said. Journey must have been difficult. Many things are difficult. We do them anyway. She moved to the window, looking out at the stars. I have lived for 8 centuries. Sung, I have seen empires rise and fall. I have commanded armies and negotiated treaties, but I have never seen someone sacrifice everything for a stranger. With no hope of reward, I had hope that the rescue would come in time. Liar, you knew you would likely die, yet you stayed anyway. Lie. Sung had no answer for that. Velmara turned to face him, and her body pulsed with gentle light. My people have a tradition, she said. We create memory crystals, perfect recordings of important moments. We share them only with those we trust completely. In my entire life, I have created only 7 such crystals. She held out her hand. In her palm was a small crystal that seemed to contain entire galaxies of light. This is the 8th. It contains the memory of our time on Meridian 7. Not the pain or the fear, but the feeling of knowing that someone cared enough to stay. I want you to have it, Your Majesty. I cannot accept this. You can and you will, when you are old and tired and wondering if your life mattered. You will hold this crystal and remember. You will know that you changed something, that because of you a queen learned what true honor looks like. She placed the crystal in his hand. It was warm, vibrating with the same harmonic frequencies he had felt during the battle. For a moment, he saw through her eyes, felt what she felt, the terror of waiting for death, the amazement when a human chose to stay, the gratitude that went beyond words. Thank you, he whispered. Velmara's body shifted to a warm golden color. The peace treaty was signed yesterday. The Krill War is over. 30 years of conflict ended because 3 people refused to run. Tell me that does not matter. After she left, Di Sung held the crystal and cried, not from sadness, but from the weight of everything that had happened. The fear, the pain, the choice to stay, the impossible survival, all of it pressed down on him until he could barely breathe. Hana found him like that and held him while he wept. She did not tell him to be strong or that everything was fine. She just stayed with him, the way he had stayed for the queen. Months turned into years. Di Sung was offered positions throughout the galaxy, military commands, diplomatic posts, corporate security jobs that paid fortunes. He turned them all down. Instead, he returned to simple work, taking a position as a security officer at a small colony station far from the core worlds. But he taught young officers came to train with him, learning not just how to fight, but when to fight and what was worth fighting for. He told them about Meridian 7, about the choice between running and staying, about how sometimes doing the right thing meant accepting that you might die. Hana used money from the Scythian Empire to start a foundation for refugees and victims of political violence. She named it the Sumi Foundation after Di Sung's sister. The foundation saved thousands of lives, giving hope to people who had none. Bora, the translator who had sabotaged the Queen's ship, dedicated her life to the peace process. Her family safely recovered. She worked tirelessly to ensure that no one else would be forced to make the choice she had faced. She and Di Sung met once. Years later, they spoke for hours too. People carrying guilt and trying to turn it into something better. A monument was built at the ruins of Meridian 7. 3 figures stood in metal and stone. A human man, a human woman, and a crystalline being. The inscription was written in 12 languages. They stayed when others fled. They stood when others fell. They proved that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to protect. Despite it, on quiet nights, Di Sung would hold the memory crystal Velmara gave him. The crystal would show him that moment in her chamber when she touched his chest and shared her life to save his. He would feel again the resonance between them, the connection that transcended species and culture, and he would remember that he mattered, that his choice to stay had changed the galaxy in ways he was still discovering. Years became decades. Di Sung grew old, his hair white and his body marked by scars that never completely faded. He retired from security work finally, settling into a small apartment on a peaceful colony world. One evening, sitting by his window and watching ships come and go, he received a message. It was a harmonic frequency only he would recognize. Vilmara, checking on her friend from across the galaxy, he smiled and used the translation device she had given him to respond. They talked about small things, avoiding the bigger truths they both carried. The Queen told him about the peace that still held after all these years. Dae Sung told her about a young security officer he had trained who just saved a family from a fire. You are still teaching them, Vilmara said. Someone has to. The galaxy is because you chose to stay. I just made a choice. Anyone could have done it, but they did not. You did. That is what makes you remarkable. After the transmission ended, Dae Sung sat in the gathering darkness and thought about his life, the failures and the victories, the losses and the gains, the moment when he chose to stay instead of run. It had not been a perfect life, but it had been a good one, and in the end, that was enough.